How old have you had this place?
The guy who owns it has had it for 35 years now.
35, wow, that's amazing.
In Rye, even the shops feel like they have past lives. And on the High Street, I found one of the best examples, an old grammar school building, now home to a record shop. A place once built for lessons, now filled with sound, memory, sleeves, stories, and conversation. And the more time I spent here, the more I realized something. Rye High Street is not just a shopping street, it is a living archive.
Which street?
Most people come to Rye for the postcard version, the cobbled streets, the old inns, the storybook lanes, the beautiful corners that feel almost untouched by time. But the High Street gives you another version of Rye, less obvious but just as revealing. This is where the town becomes practical, where old buildings are not just photographed, they are used. Where history does not sit behind a rope or a museum label, it becomes a shop, a cafe, a doorway, a conversation, a place where people still walk in, browse, pause, and belong. And that is what makes Rye interesting. It does not only preserve the past, it keeps finding new uses for it. Grammar School Records works because it feels like more than retail. You step inside and immediately the pace changes. Records do that. They slow you down. You cannot scroll through a record shop in the same way you scroll through a screen. You have to stand there. You have to look. You have to pull something out, read the sleeve, recognize a name, discover one you do not know, remember a song, or wonder what kind of life once played through that music. A record shop is a memory room. Every sleeve is a doorway into a decade, a mood, a voice, a friendship, a heartbreak, a Saturday afternoon, a version of yourself you may have forgotten. And in this building, that feeling becomes even stronger, because this was once a grammar school, a place designed for learning. Now it teaches in another way, not through textbooks or lessons, but through sound.
Hello. Wow,
Hello there.
amazing.
Well, we have got a little selection in here, that's for
Little
sure.
section, wow. How old have you had this place?
The guy who owns it has had it for 35 years now.
35, wow, that's amazing.
That is what I love about places like this. The building has changed purpose, but it has not lost its deeper role. A school was a place where people came to discover something. A record shop is still that. People come in without knowing exactly what they are looking for. Then a sleeve catches the eye. A conversation starts. A memory returns. A recommendation opens a door. And suddenly, the shop is doing what the old school once did. It is passing something on. Different subject. Same deeper purpose.
Every time I sell a couple of albums, he buys another box of them.
Oh, wow.
It's never ending.
Yeah, no, it's amazing though. It's really good. You know, the old DVDs, I suppose the new Gen Zs don't even know about the CDs.
Yeah, I mean, so much of it, people just get off the computer now.
Yeah.
But the enthusiasts, they love LPs.
Yeah, especially the LPs,
it's LPs and singles and that will go so nicely.
yeah. Oh, it's amazing.
But you see, these piles here, they're all ones waiting to be cleaned.
Oh, wow,
And
okay.
it's, I say it's just never ending around here.
That may be why vinyl still matters. Not because it is convenient. It is not. And that is exactly the point. A record asks for attention. You have to choose it. Take it out. Place it down. Listen in order. Let the music occupy a room. in a world built around speed that feels almost rebellious. A record shop reminds you that culture is not only about access, it is about relationship. The relationship between a person and a song, between a listener and a memory, between a shopkeeper and a customer, between an old building and a new purpose. And that is where Grammar School Records becomes more than a nice stop on the high street. It becomes a symbol of how Rye works. The town keeps its old structures alive by letting new rituals move into them.
Yeah.
So you do final cleaning then?
Yeah. But all the good records we clean before we put them out. And then if customers need a record cleaned, we'll put it forward.
Yeah, because I've got a few friends that are DJs and they've got stacks of vinyls.
Yeah.
And they've been trying to clean them up for a fair bit. I mean, they packed it up, but now they want to go back into DJing with the old vinyls. Yeah.
Yeah, to my way of thinking, if you're DJing, you've got to have as nice and clean a record as possible.
Yes.
I mean, I've seen people's records where they've just got them all slung in the front. And, you know, if you want to have scratchy old records to listen to at home, it's up to you.
Yeah.
But if you're playing them out,
Yes.
and if there's 100 people listening to them, you want them sounding best, don't you?
Yeah, top quality. That's great. Yeah.
So, but also we see with the 12s, the companies that put them out never put them in the sleeves anyway.
Okay.
You know, with LPs they always have in the sleeves.
Sleeves, yes.
But the 12s, they'll just stick them in the cardboard sleeves. And they'll, 12s will take a bit of wear and tear. You know, they're the most powerful
Yes.
tools.
Yeah.
You know. I mean, I DJ out with 7s.
Okay.
Love 7 singers, original 7s.
Okay.
But yeah, if you want the really powerful sound,
sound.
12s are the ones.
Okay, good tea. Good tea.
But yeah, you can get a cleaning machine for home,
Okay.
but you've got to want to clean an awful lot of it to
Yeah,
make
that's the
it
thing.
to justify
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
You know.
True.
If it's just an odd few you want cleaned, then he charges to get them cleaned.
Okay.
To my way of thinking, he's a bit cheap.
Yeah.
Everything else he overprices.
Yeah.
For some reason, the cleaning he does it nice and cheap.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and you can have an album or 12. It'll look fine because it's not got any scratches, but there's nuts in
Of course, yes.
And so when you clean it,
Yeah.
and even if it looked fine in the first place, you clean it and it sounds better.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
And that is the part you cannot get from a playlist. The conversation. Someone saying, "Have you heard this?" Someone remembering where they first heard a song. Someone finding a record they did not expect to see in a small town in East Sussex. This is how culture travels, not only through big institutions, but through small rooms, through shelves, through recommendations, through people who care enough to keep certain things alive.
You've got to pick them up at the time, and then if you don't pick them up at the time, you've got to find them after that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Once you see the record shop properly, the rest of the high street starts to feel different. The old buildings are not just facades, they are containers. Containers for new rituals. People browsing, eating, talking, buying, remembering, discovering, and then you start noticing the names. The house opposite, the house with 2 front doors, the first house. Names like these feel simple at first, almost playful, but they reveal something deeper about Rye. This is a town where buildings do not just stand silently. They are identified, remembered, described, given character. A house becomes known by where it sits, by how many doors it has, by what came before it, by how people in the town learn to recognize it. That is what makes the high street feel alive. It is not just a row of old structures. It is a street of personalities. Each doorway feels like it has a role. Each name feels like a clue. Each building carries a small story. And this is the difference between a historic town that feels dead and one that still feels alive. The buildings may be old, but the life inside them keeps changing. Rye High Street is not as instantly cinematic as Mermaid Street. It does not announce itself in the same way, but it tells you something important. A town survives when its old spaces are allowed to keep walking, not frozen, not erased, reused. After the record shop, I stopped at Ono, and in a town like Rye, even a lunch break becomes part of how you read the place. You walk, you browse, you talk, you pause. That rhythm matters, because historic towns are not meant to be consumed in a rush. They reveal themselves slowly, in a doorway, in a shop conversation, in a record sleeve, in a lunch table, in the short pause between one discovery and the next. Ono became that pause, a small reminder that culture is not only found in monuments, it is also found in how a place makes room for ordinary life. So this follow-up to Rye became less about finding another famous landmark and more about noticing how memory survives in ordinary places. A former school becomes a record shop, a high street becomes an archive, a cafe becomes a pause, a conversation becomes part of the story. That is what Rye does well. It reminds you that the past does not only survive because it is protected, it survives because people keep giving it new uses, new sounds, new conversations, new reasons to open the door. And maybe that is the lesson of the high street. History does not have to stand still to remain meaningful. Sometimes, the most powerful kind of preservation is not freezing a building in time. It is letting life back in.